Hello everyone. I'd like to share with you a story that may be very appropriate for the times that we're in and an idea that comes out of the story. There was once a king, and this king had a number of advisors that helped him out, and his chief advisor, who was very good and he relied on him all the time. But this advisor had a particular idiosyncrasy. He would always say, Gam Zu L'Tova, which means this is also for the good, no matter what happened, and particularly when something bad happens. So the king knocked over his cup, spilled the wine all over the floor. Gam Zu L'Tova. When the food was burnt in the kitchen and a meal that was inedible was brought out, Gam Zu L'Tova. When somebody tripped and fell down and hurt their ankle, Gam Zu L'Tova. And this was going on and on and on. No matter what happened, no matter how bad it was, this advisor would always say, Gam Zu L'Tova, this is also for the good. So the king was getting a little bit fed up, but he really liked this guy. So one time it happened that the two of them went out on a hunting trip, and they were going to shoot some animals. And my apologies for all the people who are vegan and vegetarian in the audience who don't agree with shooting animals, but this is the story. So they went out to do some hunting, and the king put up his rifle to his shoulder, took aim, pulled the trigger, and bam! The gun backfired and blew off his thumb. So gone was the thumb. The king was writhing in pain, blood all over the place. People were trying to bandage it up, and the advisor was standing there going, Gam Zu L'Tova. And this was enough for the king. The king just couldn't stand it anymore, and he ordered the advisor thrown into the dungeon forever. They took him away. Into the dungeon he went. The king went back. He survived the accident, and a number of years passed. And it happened that the king was going on vacation, and they were going into the jungle and for a hike. And he got separated from his party, and the king was wandering around the jungle, and all of a sudden there appeared a whole tribe of people who didn't look very friendly. In fact, they were cannibals, and they captured the king, they tied him up, they dragged him away, brought him back to the village, and they were going to create a big feast where the king was not only the guest of honor, he was the feast. So they tied him up, they prepared a big pot, lit the fire, it was all bubbling. They're about to throw the king in, but first the witch doctor needed to check that the king was complete and whole, because if there was any blemish or anything wrong with the king, they couldn't eat him. This was part of their beliefs, that they had to eat a person who was intact. And they checked over the king, and of course they came and looked at his hand, and he was missing a thumb. And they said, "This is no good. Can't eat you." They released him, threw him back, and the king made his way back to find his party totally relieved, of course, that he didn't end up as their dinner. And he said, it was thanks to this missing thumb. And immediately at that moment, he realized that the missing thumb happened when he was out on that hunting trip several years previous, and it was his advisor who said, Gam Zu L'Tova, this was for the good. And in fact, that came true. So they made their way back to the kingdom, to the castle, and immediately ordered that the advisor be freed and brought to the throne room. And there was the advisor coming in. The king greeted him warmly and said, you always said, Gam Zu L'Tova, this is also for the good, especially when my thumb blew off. And he told him the story about the jungle and the hike and the cannibals and the about to be dinner and Gam Zu L'Tova. And the advisor said, see, everything works out. Gam Zu L'Tova, this is also for the good. The king said, yeah, Gam Zu L'Tova for me. I got saved. But how is it Gam Zu L'Tova for you? You've been in that dungeon for 5 years. And the advisor said, that's true. I've been in the dungeon for 5 years. But had I not been in the dungeon, I would have gone with you on that trip, and I have all my fingers. So the lesson we can take from this story is this. No matter how adverse the situation, no matter how bad it may be, we can look back in retrospect and understand that whatever we had to do to cope with the situation, we can take some important lessons from it. We can learn to do things differently, become more self-sufficient, appreciate our neighbors, appreciate what we have. learn new skills on, you know, in my profession, distance learning and distance engagement. We can understand that there's more to society than, you know, business and commerce, for example, and yet there's important aspects of that. However lessons we take, whatever comes out of this situation that we find ourselves in, with people quarantined, people dying, and, you know, we'll come out of it. And we'll come out of it better when we look back in retrospect. We'll all be able to realize what we've accomplished, what we've learned about ourselves, and say, Gam Zu L'Tova. So my friends, be strong, be safe, be healthy, and remember, appreciate what you have, and always keep in mind, this is for the good. Gam Zu L'Tova.